All right, all right. Finally got somebody on board here. Good. Hang on, I've got some feedback. I'm gonna fix that. Hang on, I've got some feedback. I'm gonna fix that. There we go. Hopefully that got rid of it. So I'm having to do this off my phone. Something's wrong with my computer and I can't get my camera to work. So somebody fire me a message if you're hearing me. Man. There we go. Looks and sounds good. Okay. That's what I was needing to hear because this is my third attempt at it and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. And apparently my camera on my computer's down. So who else we got here? Got 3 here. So I actually had something cut today. I had a video for today. And along with, I guess, my camera, I'm having some technical difficulties on this end and I couldn't launch the video. So I figure I better do a live stream, just let everybody know what's up. Just trying to wait for a few to get in here, but it doesn't look like many's jumping on board. Let's see if I can set my phone down. There we go. So we got 5 on board. As you can tell, it's cooling off where I'm at. I've got the old hoodie on. So when you guys have questions, you just start firing away. I'll be happy to answer whatever. Like I said, I'm going to be doing some photo carves here in the future. I'm still working on it. I'm doing some research trying to figure out all the settings for it because obviously mine last time weren't correct. I've been told more than once that I was going too deep and the step over wasn't right, which means when your bit's going, how far it moves over, that's called your step over. And it came out all right. I mean, you could tell what it was. I just guess it would be better if I had all the settings correct. Another thing I was going to bring up, I told y'all we're moving. We've got our house under contract, so probably going to have a hiatus in videos there for a little while until we can figure out where we're going because we don't even know that yet. But that's down the road and hopefully it'll be a smooth transition when we get there. So who else do I have on board here? I'm showing 4 watching. I see Ray's here. Yeah, there's the problem, Ray. Most of the stuff we're looking at, finding one with a shop, or find one with a shop even close big enough to do what I need to do in it. That's the problem. But if that's the case, we'll just have to build one, which I'm not looking forward to that either because that's going to be expensive right now. But I guess if we built one, I could build it how I wanted it. Cost. I mean, you know how materials are right now. Wood, even, I can't imagine what metal's at, but wood is still through the roof. Plywood's gone down and so is 2x4s, but some of the other stuff. And there's Pete. Where are you guys from? I'm, of course, in South Central Oklahoma. And my other big fear on the move is I've got to move that machine, and that's going to be, oh, you're in Chicago. Here I'm griping about it being cool down here. I'm sure it's quite chilly up there. Man. Freezing, I figured. But like saying, it's going to be a nightmare to move that machine. I've already got people lined up to help me do it because I'm guessing it weighs somewhere between 800 and 1,000 pounds because it's a solid steel build. And my other big fear to that's moving it without damaging it because it's, you know, those rails are right on and the ball screw's right on. I don't want to really have to go through rebuilding any part of it. But, so like I said, if you guys have any questions, shoot them to me and I'll try to answer them. Pennsylvania. I would imagine it's probably cooler over there than it is here too. Oh, the Pennsylvania-Delaware line. Okay, yeah, you are further north. Ever thought of moving to a desktop machine? I haven't. I've looked at some of them. Most of the stuff I do is a little bit bigger. I mean, I usually try to do stuff in, the 2 to 3 foot range. Some of it, not all of it's that big. I like the bigger machine just because I do have the ability to spread out to something big if I wanted to. And I never really have tested it to the full extent that I've built it. I had never tried to go past 3 foot. I generally don't do stuff that big simply because of the time it takes. Because if you're doing something that big, you're going to be here for hours. I'm very impatient when it comes to setting through that kind of a deal. Usually most of my stuff, the longer cuts that I've done are an hour and a half. And I usually try to keep them around 45 minutes if I can do it. The finishing part of it doesn't bother me too bad because the airbrushing and the staining and polyurethane and all that stuff, that really doesn't take that much time. The biggest part of the time I have is prep, which is, gluing up wood if I'm gluing it up, or just the cut itself. Sometimes those are pretty long. And as far as the desktop machines, I actually have a CNC laser that I've never really messed with. I need to. I've just found some software here a while back for it, and I'd like to do some laser stuff, but hadn't got it up and going. I'm going to have another computer before that happens, obviously, since this one's taking a nosedive on me apparently today. And for all you just got here, I have a video that I've made, but it wouldn't upload to the computer, so I figured I better jump on and do a live stream, and I messed with it for a couple of hours last night, and it wouldn't load on the computer. It was like my file was corrupted, so I've got a new memory card, and hopefully that'll fix my problems, and I'm hoping it's not the computer itself, because that's a little more costly issue. Let's see, what else? Oh, on the photo card, somebody was asking me about the bit for it. That is a 30-degree 1/8 inch V-bit. And, I mean, those little dudes, they're tiny, and they're as sharp as a needle. You really couldn't see that when it was running. It just looked like an 1/8 inch end mill, but it was just a tiny little V-bit, and I bought it just for that purpose, was for a photo card. And like I said, I'll be doing more of those down the road. It's just, time's my biggest enemy right now, because we're actually going to go on another little vacation and here this next week, and we're going to, after that, be all in on getting ready to move. So time is going to be my biggest enemy for a little bit, and then my next biggest enemy will be trying to get get moved into a shop. Squaring the gantry after this Sunday. Oh yes, my hope, Christopher, is to leave it all intact and move it all at once. If I can't, I'm going to cut the legs off of it and make it to where I can rebolt the legs back on when I get to wherever I'm going. Yeah, I'm planning to leave every bit of it together if I can do it. I just don't know if I'll have enough manpower to wield that thing through the doorway, because I actually built it in that room that it's in. So I don't even know if it'll fit through the doorway. That's going to be the biggest fear. If it won't, I probably can take off the router and probably make it fit through, because chopping the legs off, it wouldn't probably be, a couple feet wide from the bottom of the gantry or the bottom of the table to the top of the gantry. But I'm hoping to leave everything on there, and then all I got to do when I get there is plug and play. Get there and just plug everything back in, because I'm obviously going to have to unhook everything, all the wiring, because it's not going to be able to travel all as one piece. We couldn't move it all as one piece. But hopefully, I don't know. I don't want to go back down the road, like I said, of reworking the whole machine, because it did take me a while to do it, and I'd have to go back into research and figure out what all I did to get it to where it's at. And I mean, I remember a great part of it, but I just do remember it was tons and tons of research. Where are you out of, Christopher? You and Ray have similar thumbnails too, I was just noticing. Both of y'all got Beals. But where are you at, Christopher? I've asked these other guys. We've got one from Chicago and one from Philadelphia, or Philly, south of Philly. Let's see, upcoming Biloxi, Mississippi. Well, you ought to be a little bit warmer than the rest of us. I was griping about being cold, and then these one guy's from Chicago and one's from Philly, and I decided I probably wasn't cold. I was just a big weenie. Let's see, upcoming stuff. I've got another sign that I'm doing that's a business sign, that it's going to have a lot of color in it. I'll be doing a lot of airbrushing, and it'll be in oak. I've got 2 Christmas videos coming up. One's already designed, the other's next fixing to be designed. There seemed like there was one more that I was going to do. I can't remember what the last one I was going to do. I'll find it. But beyond that, down the road, I mean, I usually find these things as I go. I pull the graphics off the internet, and just whatever catches my eye is what I end up cutting. And I take very few orders, but I've got a few this year. I simply don't take orders just because I don't like being on a time schedule as far as getting products squeezed out. My wife has a business where she does screen print and embroidery, and it looks like a total headache. I mean, I'm going to attest that it probably is, just because they need to be done by this date, and you have to order everything in and get everything together. So that's not what I'm wanting to do. I don't want to get in that kind of a business. Let's see. What else can we talk about here? Another question that was being asked the other day, airbrushing. Do I thin stuff down? Usually no. That brand of paint that I use, usually a paint that paints on real well. If I do thin it, I use just water, and it's like a couple of drips. And I want to say it's either red or green. It's either green. I think it's green. I don't remember. One of them that I do have to thin, because for whatever reason it comes out thicker than the rest, and it doesn't coat good. So I just have to thin it out a little bit, and it works fine. Beyond that, you guys feel free to shoot questions. I mean, I'll run out of things to talk about real quick. Let's see. Man, usually you guys are questioning me to death. Nobody's got any. Good evening from South Mississippi, old mud flap. Well, we got 2 of you from Mississippi. Well, mud flap, I was telling them that I had computer issues and couldn't upload the video that I'd shot this week, so I figured I better do a live stream and let everybody knows what's up. So do any of you guys actually have CNCs, or are you just watching, or both? I mean, I'm just kind of curious to see who has what. Mudflap has 2. Wow, what size do you have, Mudflap? I mean, you both home built, outstanding. Are they smaller or bigger, or Onefinity? Okay, how big a machine's a Onefinity? Mudflap has a 30 by 30 and a 65 by 65. Well, I've just got the one. I had never jumped into building my second one. How big's your Onefinity? I'll have to look that one up. I had never heard of that brand. I can do it. You can do it. Upgrade X-Carve. I can do it, yeah. The smaller one is mostly printed CNC. Oh, that's cool. print, NC, CNC. Well, that's cool. I'd like to have a one of the big 3D printers, but I've only got so much room for so many tools, and I've already got my shop pretty full. Just order upgrade to 48 by 32. Oh, awesome. I built mine based off your video, steel frame, 50 by 50 work area. I ended up using clear path servos. Cool. You did, well, so you did the steel frame too, so you know what I'm talking about. It's going to be a heavy machine if you ever have to move it, and not looking for it. The MPCNC uses EMT conduit for the rails. EMT conduit. Really? Well, that's interesting. I've never heard anybody using conduit for the railing. Yeah, I mean, that's just electrical conduit for railing. That is interesting. Huh. So here's what's it works okay for small stuff. I was fixing to say, I mean, you couldn't use a very long rail out of conduit because I think it would flex under the weight of the machine, wouldn't it? It's basically the same as your screw driven. Oh, okay. Pete, I saw your message there. Okay, it's basically the same as your screw-driven machine, right? I just went with the screw-driven machine. I mean, I know the belt drives work good too. I just didn't even think I wanted to try to mess with all the belt stuff. I just thought the screws would have been easier. I'll email you some pics, short video of the machine I built. Cool. I'll be glad to watch them, Christopher, I don't know what you go by. It does flex a lot. It's not good for 3D. Well, I was wondering about that. I mean, the cool thing of it is the railing's cheap, or cheaper. I've just never heard of that. So the 3D printer, you built it too? Because I mean, I've looked at 3D printer packages, and I would be happy to use this 3x2 and 4x2 steel tube. It's a super rigid. Okay, well now I can see that, a 3x2 and 4x2 steel tubing. Yeah, imagine it's super rigid. That would, I'm still just baffled by the conduit one. I like it. I mean, I think it sounds cool, but I'd love to do a 3D printer, 3/16 of an inch thick. Yeah, that's pretty good size stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what else I can tell y'all that I know. I know so very little at the moment. I did a build series on my channel. Okay. So cool. So is that basically what you do your stuff in, is 3D printer stuff? Is that what yours is? Yeah, mine's not fancy. I see he was put not as fancy as mine. Mine's not fancy. If I could think of the guy's name, there was a guy in Czechoslovakia that I walked through building his machine, and he sent me pictures of it after he was done with it. I would bet you money the guy's an engineer. His looked like a commercial machine. I mean, this thing was immaculate, unbelievable. But Mudflap, is that what you're doing, is 3D printer stuff? Because that may actually be interesting to me. I may actually look into building one at some point. That'd be pretty cool. And I've never messed with a 3D printer at all. I've just seen the stuff they can turn out, and looks very interesting. Oh, you bought the 3D, okay. Okay. That's what I was wondering, because even if I bought one, I would still do some of it on here just because I think it's, okay. You got a router spindle, okay. You were losing me whenever you had the conduit as stuff. Now I'm getting what you're saying. The smaller machine uses the conduit, the larger one uses the 3x2. Okay. So, and you were talking about that it's not good for 3D, so on that topic. I've actually been researching more 3D stuff. And basically the research on it's relearning how to use Vectric to do 3D, because there's a bunch of steps to it. And once you have an understanding of it, it's not as hard as it looks doing the programming. It just takes longer. And the cuts take much longer. But I've been looking at doing some stuff and doing some smaller stuff, you know, maybe 8x8, and just doing a little bit of 3D stuff, just because it really does turn out some cool things. Was talking to one of my buddies. He's up in Ohio, and he was doing a 3D cut, and it was on. He has a, I don't want to lie to you, it's either a 5x10 or a 4x8 table, and the piece was so big it was like a 10-hour cut. And I said, "Oh my gosh!" I'm thinking of it in the terms of my machine. The safeties I have are just a cutoff switch, or I can go to the Mach 3 and stop it. I don't have any true safeties on the machine. And he laughed because he has a commercial machine and he can go in, and his is in his garage, and he'll kick it off and go to bed and get up the next morning and it'll be done. I would feel very uncomfortable doing that, but I mean, I guess his has all the safeties on it, so it'll kick it off and he doesn't have to worry about the machine. I would just worry about fire. But I mean, I guess he's done it enough that he's very comfortable with it. I've actually sent him some business, because a lot of times I get a lot of orders and that I don't intend to fill or don't want to fill. And so I just route some of the business his way, because I don't take a whole lot of orders just for the money of it. I basically do this stuff more for YouTube, just doing new stuff and getting on here and interacting with people just because I enjoy it. Let's see. But now you got my Mudflap has my gears turning, because now I'm going to start looking at 3D printers, just because it's always kind of interested me. I just never messed with them, and I might have to look at a small one, just get started before I jump into a big one. So anything else you guys can think of? Let's see. The prints NC is similar to your build, ball screws, linear rails, bolted together, various as well. It's the only 3D printed parts are the motor mounts and a few spacers. Well, that's cool. So So do you do the motor mounts out of the carbon fiber 3D printed stuff? I mean, I just think you'd want it to be pretty rigid for your motor mounts. And the plastics they use, I mean, I know some of them are pretty sturdy and strong, but I've seen the carbon fiber stuff that they do, and those things are bulletproof once they build stuff out of them. But you definitely got my gears turning. And yeah, I need to get on that CNC laser. I've just been lazy about it. I've had it sitting upstairs for over a year, and the software was so hard to use. And somebody on here actually pointed out to me a software called Lightburn, and I've looked at it, and it's not that different than the Vectric product, except it doesn't cost near what Vectric cost. And it looks very easy to use. So I need to download it, but I've been waiting because I am going to upgrade computers here before long, and I'm not going to try to put it on this one. This one's full. This computer's old, and like I said, I tried to do the live stream from it. And Brian Tomlinson, $60, just bought it. Lightburn. Is that what you're talking about, Brian? I guess I quit kicking my foot, making this thing shake. He said he just bought it, so I guess you can buy it for $60. Yep, Lightburn, yes. So have you started using it yet? Is it as easy as they present it as being? Because, I mean, from what I read about it, it looks like it is as easy as Vectric to get into. Let's see, I use steel mounts with printed spacers. Okay, here. I use steel mounts with printed spacers, but the regular print filament is strong enough for a Nema 23. Brian Tomlinson says Lightburn is as easy as Vectric. Well, that's cool, because I mean, I do need to use that machine. I bought it and never utilized it much. I did like 2 things and then never went back to it because I was having to use I don't remember what the software was. It was so hard to use though. It was just very time consuming. And what he's saying is the printed, the spacers is what was done with his 3D printer for the steel mounts that hold the Nema 23s. Nema 23s are the size of the motors. On mine, I've got Nema 34s, which, after the fact, I probably could have got by with 23s. Overkill has always been my thing whenever I'm building something. Build it way stronger than it needs to be. You don't have to worry about it breaking. That's kind of my logic behind it. And it's kind of like my router. My router doesn't have to be as big as it is, but it's a 3 horsepower. And, but I don't ever have problems with it pulling through wood. So, let's see, 400 ounce. I'm thinking you got the JTech laser and bolting onto the side of the spindle and getting the Vetric add-on program from my VCarve Pro. I've looked at the bolt-on lasers, and you put it on the side of it, so I'm assuming that whenever you zero it, that's what was getting me. So so this is your spindle, and so if you bolt the laser in over here, so basically you're just zeroing off where the laser's pointing, which would actually be 2 or 3 inches one way or the other of the bit. I'm just wondering how that would work. I mean, I'm assuming it would work the same. It would just show it being 2 inches. Offsets need to be used. Okay. So you just have to change your offsets and it does that. Okay. That makes sense. Duh. I have a 3 horsepower too. Are you liking the water cooled? I went air cooled. I was just being in tight water and I didn't want to deal with the water table underneath. And that, whenever it gets cold here, I didn't want it freezing up because I don't have a heated shop. Using offset to 0, okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I just wasn't even thinking about offsets. But I do like the idea of the water-cooled spindle being a lot quieter, because of what you guys don't see is when I'm sitting around there in the shop, I've got big headphones on that play. There's a 3M Bluetoothable headsets that I have listed in the description. I love them. Now, in fairness, I use them more than just in the shop. I use them mowing and just about anything. I'm using a power tool because I can sit and listen to music the whole time. Oh, let's see. What else? That is interesting, though. I do like the 3D printer and the light burn. I'm going to have to check into those both. And in fairness, I say I'm going to check into them. I'll look at them. I won't be probably moving on them until we get moved, just because I don't want any added stuff. I'm not going to buy a 3D printer until we get somewhere else, because I've got so much junk now that I don't know how long it's going to take us to get loaded up. I'm going to add a laser to mine soon enough. Most guys use RVP antifreeze for cooling. Okay. 5-gallon bucket of water is almost never freezes here. Well, that's true. I mean, you're down further south and it probably never does freeze. I'm just going off the premise of last year. We had that record freeze here where we got down to like, 25 below 0, and hadn't happened in forever. And, it ruined 3/4 of my paint, all my glue. It ruined everything I had in my shop. And then it didn't help that that's right when I was so sick last year. And so I couldn't get out there to do anything. But yeah, the RV antifreeze makes perfect sense because, it's actually a safe antifreeze. We've got an RV and that's what we use in it. And you really don't have to worry about it. I went air cool also from your list. It's in air conditioned area. I've let it run for 9 hours at a time, 0 issues. I've never let mine run that long. But like I said, I've never let mine run that long because I don't have safeties. And if I had one that I had all the safeties, like a commercial machine, or even my machine, if I would add all the safeties, I wouldn't have a problem letting it run that long if I could walk away and come to the house. But when I'm letting mine run, I'm sitting out there with it just to be sure nothing's going to happen. And it's just my being paranoid probably. Because in all honesty, a lot of times when it's sitting there running, I'm not watching it. I'm sitting there playing on my phone. I don't think the noise factor is enough to change. It's just a loud Okay. Well, yeah, the bit whenever it's going into the wood and it's making those high pitched noise, I'm sure it is just as loud. I imagine it's probably what they're talking about is just the actual motor itself, because the motor on mine's pretty loud. I mean, it's just a high whiz, a hum whenever it's going. The one thing I would love to do though is I'd love to come across a commercial machine, because I'd love, although mine's a 4x4, I would love to go up to a 5x10. I'd love to go to a great big machine. That way you'd have zero worries about size of anything, and it would really expand the kind of the stuff you do. Because now if I do something that's over a 4x4, I have to do it in sections. And usually it's stuff like lettering, huge letters. I've done great big letters for events. And yeah, I mean, I would like to have a great big machine. And on that note, you were talking about the add-on laser. Has anybody added a plasma to theirs? Because I have seen machines where they've added a plasma cutter to it. That would be great. I would love to do it. I just, you can't do it all. I mean, I can't do it all, I should say. I've used Ender 3 3D printer under $200. Really? I had no idea so they've been out long enough. They're getting down to where they're affordable. I hadn't even looked at 3D printers in a couple of years. That is cool. I have a plasma cutter and a dream. Well, I've got a plasma cutter. I just don't have a plasma cutter on my machine. Good call. Yeah, I actually know a guy that lives not far from us here that has a plasma cutting table, and some of the stuff he's putting out is great. And same principle, other than you don't use the Z-axis. It's usually the same distance from every piece of metal, but he uses Vectric, and because they have a plasma side of that, I haven't even been over to see his machine, but he's been telling me about it and showing me some pictures, and the stuff it puts out's great. And right where I'm at, he and another one of my friends down the road are going to be in it. I've got a buddy down the road that's doing powder coating now, and he has a unbelievable setup. In fact, the thing I'm cutting next is going to be a sign for his inside his business, because I'm going to do it out of oak, and it's going to be his logo. He sent it to me, and I'm going to cut it and airbrush it up to what his picture looks like, what his logo looks like. But maybe when I'm over there, I can shoot a little bit of footage of inside his shop, because the size of his ovens are unbelievable for powder coating. Check out Bob over at Making Stuff. He built a plasma table. Okay, I think I'm actually subscribed to Making Stuff. I hadn't looked at it lately, but I think I'm subscribed to him. Yeah, I don't know that I'll ever truly build another one from the ground up. I figure if I ever do another one, I'm probably going to try to buy one. Because if you will keep your eye out, you can buy commercial size ones that are companies have used, and they're moving on to a different technology or a different machine. And I would just as soon as do that, just get one and put it together, as opposed to having to piece it together. I'd worry about electrical interface on my setup with all the existing wire, the router. Yeah, I don't know how that would work out. I mean, I've seen people talk about machines that they've added a plasma cutter to it. I don't know how the interface works. I haven't looked that far into it. And like I said, I'm not really looking to go into doing metal. I butcher wood most of the time. I do a little bit of welding and a little bit of cutting when I need to, but beyond that, I've got out of that business. I mean, because I told y'all early on in one of my early videos, my dad and I built RV and boat storage down south of town here where we live, and we built 100 units, and it was just he and I, and we welded the entire frame and put it all together and concreted everything in. And since then, I've sold that business, and I don't have it anymore, but I wouldn't go back through that either, because that was a good 2 years of just hard labor of two people. I wouldn't trade the time with my dad, but I mean, it was just a lot of work. And I was happy to get rid of the business because you talk about something that was a pain. I'd work all day, get home, then somebody would want to rent a unit, and I'd have to drive, 15 minutes south of town and go rent them a unit, turn around, drive back up, or they'd forget the key to the lock. I'd have to come down and cut a lock off or something like that. That part of it got old to me. And so I found somebody looking for that business and sold it to them. But I had never really put a lot of thought into a plasma cutter until I saw a machine that had both router and plasma. And it was actually a fancy one. It was one of those that, had your plasma over here and your router here, and it would rotate. The head of it would rotate to whichever one was going into, which, it was a commercial machine, so there is no telling what the price tag of it was. Well, let's see. If you guys don't have any other questions, I'm probably going to bail off here for long. Let's see. You were talking about commercial machines. I just saw a college auction one off for $4,000. Yep, that's not bad. Only 197 inches in X, 165 in Y, 40 in Z. 56,000 pounds. Here's my fear to that. Man, you're going to have to be sure you've got a quality concrete floor to set there on A, moving it in. 56,000 pounds. Wow, that's a big machine. Okay, off topic. It's been about a year now, and you seem fully healed up. I'll just go. Yeah, for the most part, I am healed up. I still have an issue with a foot where I had a blockage in a leg from the plaque that came from my heart, went down to my leg. It caused a couple of blockages, and half my foot is still numb. And every once in a while, I get just a little tinge of shooting pain in it, or maybe you think it's coming back alive, but it hasn't yet. So, for the most part, yes, and I have no complaints. I'm glad he did too. Those were big prayers that were filled, because my other option was, if they didn't catch it when they did, I would have been chopping a leg off, and it'd been hard to get around a CNC machine hopping around on one leg. I sure don't want to try it. I know there's tons of people and technology's moved way forward on prosthetics, and I just don't want to give it a whirl. I'll be honest. So I'm getting around good enough, and as long as I don't have to run any races, I don't have any fears, because I'm getting around enough that I can walk. And if it's for great amounts of time that I'm on my feet, my left leg or my left foot will start to hurt, but beyond that, it's not as bad enough that I can't keep walking when it starts hurting. So, but absolutely, I did get healed up, and everything worked out for the best. Oh, let's see, what else? And so has anybody had to fight with the pandemic stuff? I got vaccinated right off the bat because I was having all this going on, and we weren't going to risk it, because that on top of this would have been a no-go. And so we haven't had to deal with it too much. Our daughter's had it, and her husband's had it, and I've had an uncle that's had it, and they've all pulled right through it, and with little repercussions from it. Vaccinated, yeah. I don't blame you. And don't get me wrong, if you choose not to get vaccinated, that's your call. I'm not one way or the other. It's your body, your life. I'm a nurse in real life, so I have been neck deep in it from the start. I feel you. Before I was a trooper, I was a paramedic for about 7 years. And my older brother, is still a paramedic, been there for 30 years doing it. And he's had hands-on watching the whole thing. And I hear all the stories, so I know it's a real thing. I'm hoping it'll wind down far enough that it's something that you can just get a vaccine for at some point and not have to worry about it. You Brad Mudflap, I'm with Brian Tomlinson there, man. Thank you for serving, because I wouldn't want to be in the middle of it. Oh, let's see. Well, we've been on here for about 40 minutes, so it's been a rough, but I'm working for God, so to keep Him goes the glory. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I've been on here for over 40 minutes, and it's getting close to dinner time, and I'm hungry. So I will do everything in my power to have a video out next week. Like I said, we're going on a little vacation, but I'm going to try to get out here in the first couple of days of this week and get something cut and get a video uploaded and let it pop up while I'm gone. All right, guys, I appreciate the chat too. And I don't know what I'm going to cook, but I'll go cook something up. All right, guys, that's going to be it this time, and y'all at you next time. See ya.